Welcome back. Okinawa is always a hot spot when we talk about it on Tokyo on Fire. It is in the news now, and it's big. Michael, if you're a sailor in Okinawa or anywhere in Japan, you are not allowed to drink.
This amazing order that came down
huge.
for the entire U.S. Navy here in Japan. No alcohol sales and no traveling outside of the base for anything other than absolutely mandatory or absolutely necessary purposes. You have to go to the gas station to get gas? It's okay. You want to go to the beach? No. The complete shutdown after a series of crimes have really damaged the image of the United States and the United States Navy and all U.S. service persons serving here. It has been an amazing week.
It's not quite an act of contrition for the murder of the girl from the service worker in Okinawa.
Okay, let's make clear. That was by a retired service worker. So it's not someone who he was working on the base as a civilian. So
Right.
it's not a direct connect to them, but indeed to another issue, which was a traffic accident.
Right, by an officer who was drinking and driving.
That's right. A young woman, a petty officer, was drinking off base, got in her car, and there was a multiple car injury accident because of her drunk driving. Right after this murder that took place by a civilian employee, and most recently, there's been the confession of a rape that took place several months ago. The courts got the confession from a U.S. sailor. This concatenation of events has pushed the brass at the DOD in Washington to say something has to happen because we're losing control of the situation over there. And they have lost control. They've completely lost control of the narrative. And the persons who have benefited the most have been the anti-base faction in Okinawa politics.
And they just had an election, and it looks like the governor is back in the driver's seat.
It's not only back in the driver's seat, he's got his foot on the metal. I mean, he's really pushing down because his group increased the number of seats it controls in the assembly, and the persons who are committed, the members of that assembly who are committed to abolition of all bases, has increased. There are 48 seats in the assembly for Okinawa. 31 are now held by anti-base activists / politicians. There is a huge majority there, and it increased in size thanks to this election. The crimes that have taken place over the last few days and weeks have really changed the dynamic. And whereas the governor was having a bit of a shaky, a time when, yes, he was popularly elected, but his fight with the national government over the Henoko base was weakening him. It looks as though crimes by U.S. service persons and retired service persons have delivered a stunning blow to any plans that the national government might have to go forward with Henoko.
You know, isn't it interesting when we watch these developments, how quickly the tide can change? And it was just 2 weeks ago that the United States President Barack Obama was in Hiroshima. He made a terrific speech, and this was clouded by the arrest of the off-base, service worker and the murder. He's been arrested under questioning by the Japanese police.
Well, he has not been arrested. We should really clarify how Japanese police handle investigations.
Well, first of all, before that, he's not under SOFA, which is another part of the discussion, but
he both is and isn't. Okay, and in order to deal with anger about the status of forces agreements, SOFA, the Abe administration has gone forward and said, we're going to open it up to discussions, which the United States government never wants to do.
Sure.
But Mr. Abe has felt pressed in this situation that I need to say something. And even though this proposal that he's made will go nowhere, he's thrown it out. I guess he thinks he can take the political heat when
the Americans say no.
No, when the Americans say that it's not going to happen. Now let's go back to this issue of arrest, not arrest. Okay. He was picked up and he was put in jail.
As a suspect.
And he was preliminarily charged with what they always charge possible murder suspects with. which is disposal of a dead body in an illegal way. That gets them into the cell, into isolation and into interrogation for lengthy periods of time until they can get enough information to either arrest him on a different crime or a confession of the crime itself. That now he has gone through that process. They've now moved on to charging him with murder, which will give them another 23 days to get a confession.
Because they've arrested him again, the clock starts once again.
The clock starts again. And even if after 23 days they don't get a confession out of him, and they do want a confession, prosecutors don't want to prove anything based on evidence. That's not the way Japanese prosecutors work.
We want a confession from your mouth that you
signed it. We don't have to present much in the way of evidence. This process will go very quickly.
He signed the document.
You signed the document. You admit that you did it. Our job is made easier. This whole process is very much simpler. Just do it. That's the way they operate. That's the way they want to operate in this instance. And if after 23 days they don't get that confession, that doesn't mean he goes free on habeas corpus. Does not happen, because the judge in the case, based on the heinousness of the crime and the crime that has been described, fits those criteria, can extend.
Right.
Even though he has not formally been charged with the crime itself.
For the benefit of viewers who might not know, let's just talk a little bit about the restrictions or the ability of the Japanese police. And this is nationwide, and it's for any crime that you might be suspected of. They don't have to physically arrest you. They can put you in observation, and you are incommunicado.
That's right.
You can talk with a lawyer every once in a while throughout the day.
And it's
limited, and it's through the plate glass.
That's the lawyer is the only person you can talk to. You don't get visitation by anyone else. And the lawyer is not with you when you're being interrogated.
That's right.
And it's only been in the last 2 years that there has been a requirement that there be a video record of what was done in the interrogation room.
Well, only under certain heinous crimes. It's not across the board.
It's not across the board, but nevertheless, until now, there's been no requirement that there be any record of what they say, what they offer, there's no such thing as Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Yes, you do have the right to remain silent, but they don't encourage you.
Right. You don't have any rights when you're behind that plexiglass wall.
Unless you come in with the mental stability and the mental strength to say, I will say nothing. They will keep at you for 23 days, morning till night, under bright lights. They don't turn the lights off. If it's in the middle of winter, they don't turn the heater on. If it's the middle of summer, they don't let you have air conditioning to get you to that point.
Right. It is a form of, waterboarding.
It's a form of enhanced interrogation.
Yes.
Okay? And they do employ it. And unsurprisingly, they get the confessions. And 98% of the time, they get a conviction.
That's right. So the point here is, if you are ever captured by the Japanese police, be clean, be straight, don't get arrested, don't fall into that plexiglass room.
Well, but whatever you do, don't get, if you ever, by some very poor chance, get involved with the police force, understand it's not about justice. And don't start arguing because you're on the road.
Right.
And it's clear that this person, and in this case I'm speaking of the murder suspect, got talking and was cajoled into talking way too much and has completely set himself up for it's a one-time murder, and it is heinous, but normally persons who have killed only once do not get the death penalty in Japan, but it's possible. I mean, have been recent executions.
This one was absolutely huge. The impact of every one is, I'm sure, just
horrendous. But the likelihood that he'll get the death penalty is actually less than I would say had a Japanese done this crime, because there is this question. He is an African American. Though he doesn't seem to be naturalized, but he has his wife's last name. It's a situation where the prosecutors would get pressure from politicians. Don't push on this one. Right. Go for life in prison, without parole, whatever. That kind of thing. Not that there's parole here either.
Right. Life in a Japanese prison must be pretty tough.
Yeah, but the issue of his appearance and his being an American actually is, in this case, to his favor, because the severity of what they will do would bring in the United States government. Now, the United States government has had to take a lot of heat. Mr. Obama, President Obama, when he was here, had to listen to
very tight-lipped.
Had to hear all about this case. Ambassador Kennedy has been receiving calls, first about the rape case, then about the murder case, and now about the drunk driving, and has had to hold on the phone while being formally yelled at by the foreign minister. He's doing it for theatrical purposes. She's listening for theatrical purposes, but they have to go through this. The U.S. government has had a really tough time, and there's really no way in sight. So what they've done is go completely overboard, as usual, as the Navy would. They've gone completely overboard with this ban, a complete, total ban on alcohol.
Well, they've done this sort of thing before. They've applied curfew to the fellows on base in Okinawa. They've done that on many occasions.
But it's either a single base.
Right,
but it's never been nationwide, and let's say
nationwide, all sailors,
and you can't go to any bars, okay, off base, and you can't get off base anyway unless it's for a specific functional purpose, which includes going to the gym, by the way. So it's not as if the criteria are incredibly high,
right?
But if I have a gym membership, I have to leave and go to the gym. Okay, then you can go, but they're being treated like children. And they're supposed to be the defenders of Japan.
Right. Well, don't you know, I mean, it doesn't just hurt the sailors. It hurts the economy of the bases or the outside communities that service the bases. And can't you imagine there are probably 100,000 people that want to leave this petty officer out in the woods with the bear?
I don't think so. And the issue really is that the petty officer, and petty is really the word here, got into a traffic accident.
But it happens all the time. This sort of thing.
Yeah, but it shouldn't, especially since drunk driving is looked upon so fiercely in the United States.
And you are visitors to this country. This doesn't belong to you. You are guests here. You are defending the country.
And the alcohol level that is permissible in the blood here is basically zero.
Zero, right.
I mean, maybe trace elements from a cough suppressant that you took 2 years ago is acceptable. But no.
It's zero tolerance.
It's zero tolerance. And everybody is taught that when they come here and they're served here. And yet we had this incident. That is what gives Governor Onaga the ability to go up to Abe. And in their latest, they've had these face-to-face meetings based on the lawsuit over Henoko and say, all this is happening because the bases are in Okinawa. And to which Abe can say very little.
Right.
Yes, that's right. It's happening to us because of your priorities, Mr. Abe. And silence is his response.
A week sure makes a lot of difference in Tokyo politics, and it includes that going on in Okinawa as well. Keep tuned to this one. Sorry for you sailors.